Well, the war in Ukraine is one major issue confronting Europe. Earlier on Thursday, Russia pounded Ukraine with deadly missiles and drone strikes. It was a sweeping attack. Ukraine said that Russia had launched its second largest attack since the full-scale invasion began 3.5 years ago. The strikes killed at least 23 civilians, including children. They also hit European Union and British Council buildings, prompting the EU and Britain to summon their Russian envoys. Support for Ukraine and its defense industry will be the most important topic when EU defense ministers meet this Friday in Copenhagen. For more on this, I'm joined by our international affairs editor, Oliver Farry. Hello to you, Oliver. Needless to say, relations have not been great between Russia and Ukraine's European allies. This is only going to exacerbate that.
Yeah, Thursday's attacks on Kyiv mark an escalation, even if it's probably not an intended one, due to the fact that offices belonging to both the European Union and the UK were struck. We don't really know if these were intentionally targeted, as Ukraine's Foreign Minister Andrei Sybiha suggests, but Russian attacks have, since the start of the war, been indiscriminate, and more importantly, there was quite a large loss of civilian life as well. Both the EU and UK have summoned the respective Russian diplomatic representatives, but the attack as a whole is the greater source of ire for Ukraine's European allies. The EU's foreign policy chief Kaja Kallas said it was a deliberate choice to escalate and mock peace efforts, especially. There was, for the past month, Kyiv was largely spared attacks, probably because Donald Trump had Vladimir Putin invited to Alaska in that time. And even Trump, who just 2 weeks ago was, pretty much parroting the Kremlin view, said he was not surprised by the attack. His chief envoy to Ukraine, Keith Kellogg, said that these egregious attacks threaten the peace that Donald Trump is pursuing. It's very much centering the US president there, which might suggest that Trump himself is taking it personally.
Mocking the peace efforts, threatening to undermine the peace efforts. I mean, is there any hope left for a ceasefire?
In the immediate term, no. Efforts will probably continue, but those hopes were already distant enough anyway. That Donald Trump's proposed meeting between Zelensky and Putin has struggled to get off the ground. Friedrich Merz said yesterday that it was obvious there was no meeting was going to take place, or certainly not in the interim. In reality, it's not in Vladimir Putin's interests to meet Volodymyr Zelensky or to agree to a ceasefire now. That has been clear for quite a while, and perhaps Donald Trump it was wishful thinking on his part. But Russia has the upper hand in the war. They're making gains on the battlefield, and he's probably content to allow the diplomatic side to drag while to allow time for his troops to make more ground. There are even reports in the United States that Donald Trump might be willing to just walk away from the talks at this point. And certainly his spokeswoman, Caroline Levitt, wasn't being very encouraging yesterday when she said both sides must make peace. And she drew an equivalence between the Russian attacks on Kyiv and Ukrainian drone attacks on Russian oil refineries. One way to get out of this might be perhaps to suggest security guarantees for both sides. We've already heard the security guarantees from Europe and for Ukraine in the event of a ceasefire, but the US has also said that it's willing to offer air and intelligence support should the war come to an end. On the Russian side, Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said in an interview last week there were a group of countries, including UN Security Council members, who could guarantee Ukraine's security. But that is still going to involve a demand on Russia's part that Ukraine be not in NATO and not be aligned with any blocs. Of course, Kyiv and its Western allies will still not trust Putin, and they will expect the attacks to continue too.
Yeah, you mentioned Russia gaining new territory. Where has it been picking up that ground?
Well, Kyiv admitted this week that Russia had entered the Dnipropetrovsk Oblast this week, and that's that's right on the front, southwest of the Donbass. Still in Ukrainian control, but crucially, it's not one of those oblasts or provinces that Russia currently occupies any part of. The troops entered Zaporizhzhia and Novokhyrovsk, two practically abandoned villages. There've been very few people living there since the start of the war. Ukraine insists it still controls the two villages. The Russian Ministry of Defense posted a video of troops brandishing a Russian flag in Zaporizhzhia. Now, this was clearly meant as a defiance of Ukraine and is probably the most significant aspects to it. The villages are not important either strategically or politically, and Ukraine would not see them as a potential bargaining chip in any territorial swap. Neither can Russia expect to use it as a beachhead to move further into Ukrainian territory because they're fairly exposed. The value lies rather in the effect in morale it might have on Ukrainian troops, which will have benefits for Russia elsewhere in neighbouring Donbass, where there are more substantial gains being made. Russia has previously invested lots of personnel and lives in taking a similarly unstrategic village, fairly famously Bakhmut in 2023, because it was of symbolic importance. So this isn't quite comparable on the same scale there. It's not comparable really in terms of strategy or in terms of actual military use, but it could have a similar effect on Ukrainian morale where the battle is being fought.
All right, Oliver, thank you very much. Oliver Farry from French 24's International Desk.